right, Tim, as hardly a relative newcomer, but somewhat, 5 years in the sport, who are the people who sort of guided you on the way up? And then who are some of the mentors, the people you saw who were playing the sport that made you want to play the sport too?
Honestly, I didn't really know jack about wheelchair rugby before I started showing up to practices. I heard about it in passing when I was living in the DC area, but back then it was still called quad rugby. So it really just kind of one ear out the other because I'm like, well, I'm not a quad, so whatever, it's not my thing. I was big into hand cycling back then in DC. It was when I moved to Houston, my hand cycling opportunities kind of dried up. If you've never been to Houston, it's kind of the devil's taint is the best way to describe its weather. Hot, humid, spontaneous, like giant downpours. We tried to keep up with cycling through the summer, but it was just nasty and hot, and I was not feeling it at all. And I just decided I needed something. I needed a group specifically because there was no group. It was just me and my girlfriend riding on the trails by ourselves. But I needed a group to help, talk me out of being lazy. That's when I called Wes Gray in Houston. I said, hey, what do you guys got? They listed their sports, and I was like, well, let me try this wheelchair rugby thing.
We're going to jump right back into rugby, but you just said something to me, a couple of minutes ago where you were talking about when you first got in a chair that the natural inclination was, oh, here you go, here's a power chair. Mm-hmm. But as the conversation went on, you could see that was a limiting device for you.
Yeah.
How freeing was it when you found your way into a manual chair? And even though, it's utterly complicated sometimes to power your chair with one arm, but nonetheless freeing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely was. You never appreciate what you have till it's gone. You never realize how much you like being in motion all day until you're in a bed all day for 2-3 months at a time. And so they got me in a power chair. Yeah, it was freeing, it was liberating, but it required a ramp van. It required battery chargers. And DC is a really mobile city, so I wanted to go be able to cruise around bars and museums, restaurants, whatever. I don't have to worry about charging my chair up every time I get somewhere, or having to rely on only one type of taxi that took forever to get there. I got my ramp van. It was great, and then I realized people park like assholes. They park in the access lanes. They park. They take up all the handicap spots. In a ramp van, I was kind of a slave to that. If there wasn't a handicap spot or there wasn't one with a wide enough access lane, I just couldn't do whatever errand it was I was trying to do. So that was a big impetus that drove me to wanting to get into a manual chair. And I got lucky that I had another triple amputee at Walter Reed at the time. His name was Todd Love. He was using a manual chair. He's a below elbow amputee on one side. I saw that he was able to do it, and I was like, oh crap, I can do this. I just need to figure it out. So I started working with prosthetists, got the right stuff, started trying it out, fell over backwards a whole lot.
I bet you did.
Yeah, the first chairs they gave me were, like para chairs. If you don't have legs in the front, jump is murder. Like, you just go right over backwards.
So most people would take that path of least resistance. You're a veteran, you can get a ramp and a van and have your power chair and be cruising around at 15 miles an hour, but you opted instead to, take a harder road. Do you think some ways, maybe like taking that more difficult way, did it make your life more interesting and better?
I think that's just part of who I've always been. I was a Marine EOD tech. Being a Marine wasn't difficult enough for me. So halfway through, I was like, this is boring and stupid. Let me do something even harder. So I went and volunteered to be an explosive ordnance disposal technician. So that's always been in me. Throughout my rehab, I wanted to do things the hard way, the proper way, the way that led me to whatever goals I wanted in the future. And this was just a continuation of that.
When I look at the sport, it's obvious to see it's a very rough sport. You guys, you beat each other up pretty good out there, a lot of impact. That must have felt just, real manly to be able to get back out there and mix it up and hit. And is that part of what this sport's all about for you?
Oh, hell yeah. That's what I like to do. I play this because I just like to hit people, especially as an amputee. Once I kind of figure out how to hit people and not fall over myself, that's just what I constantly want to do, especially playing in Division I. You can't play that division lightly. If you want to get anywhere, you need to be aggressive. You need to dish out hits. You need to make your opponent feel you every bit of every game, because every hit you deal out in the first quarter will be felt by your opponents in the fourth quarter.
You know, not to go Tony Robbins or anything, but you have that right kind of attitude. What is it about you, do you think, I mean, as you reflect on yourself and what you've accomplished, what is it about you that made you move on the way you did? I mean, life is difficult, man. I mean, it's no secret. You're missing 3 limbs. It's hard. And you've had multiple surgeries. Why did you move on? What was it that was special about you?
People have been asking me that for 15 years, and I still don't think we've ever found an answer. I think part of it is my drive from being not only a Marine, but a Marine explosive ordnance disposal technician. Part of it's just, me being hard-headed for my entire life, wanting to do things the hard way. And I think, but most specifically is just, keeping a steady eye on the future. I could have, and a lot of guys do, they focused on what happened to them. Well, they got blown up. They did this in Afghanistan. That's cool, and it sucks. It was life-changing, but I can't do shit about it. That happened. I'm not going to grow my legs back. I'm not going to go back to Afghanistan and pull any of my friends back up out of the grave. So why the hell would I worry about it? I want to worry about the things I can change, which are things in the future.
So the complete opposite of rugby is one of your avocations, one of the things you like, which is photography.
Yeah.
What kind of, is there something really soothing and peaceful that comes to the table that I don't know, maybe helps you with your day, just to get those quiet times in, just you, nature, the camera?
There's definitely a lot of that, and photography it's an art, and it addresses that desire of mine to want to create. And I was actually a photographer, hobby photographer, before I got injured. It was the first thing I ever adapted. Before I ever got into adaptive sports, I was adapting my camera to work for me. Went through a few iterations. And a lot of it is, soothing to just go out and be me and my camera. Even, just last year, I worked for Movie United on the daily. I shoot photography for them, on the regular. I was shooting one of our big flagship events, the Hartford Nationals up in Michigan. A whole week of just shooting 12 hours a day plus. I shot 16,000 plus images over the course of the week. I was worn out. So I took a day before I started my drive back home. I was like, I still want to go shoot, but I want to shoot for me. I don't want to shoot for work. I don't want to meet anyone's list or anyone's time frames. So I went to Frederick Meyer Gardens, these glorious botanical gardens they have in Grand Rapids. If you're ever up there, definitely check them out. And I just wandered around. I took my camera, my Pentax, that's my favorite. I took 2 lenses. I said, this is all I get. I didn't have my bag of, a dozen lenses like I have for work. And I just wandered around all day, taking pictures of whatever felt right.
What were the adaptations to the camera that helped you, obviously, to stabilize the camera, keep it still?
So, luckily, the photography world is full of gadgets, and any way they can drain money out of your wallet, some company will figure out a way to do it in photography. So the first thing I used was a bag made by a company called Click Elite. It was designed for backpackers to be able to shoot telephoto without having to drag a monopod or a tripod or something around with them. So it had a little frame around it and a clamp, so you could mount the camera right in front of your face. That was the first thing I used, when my hand was still really low function, so I could take pictures that way, because we all know cameras are not left-handed. So I'd have to reach around, and that was a really cool way to start. But as I wanted to push forward. It's cool, but it's stuck on your chest. So then I got prosthetic attachment. It was a little thing that would go into the end of my prosthetic arm. I could put a camera on top and control it that way. It gave me a little more freedom of movement. But still, I was limited. If I wanted to move, more than a couple of scoots, I have my cameras on the end of my hand, and I need that hand. And then one day I just started messing around free-holding the camera with my hand. Discovered my thumb webbing here makes a perfect little cradle for the lens. So I hook it under the lens, and I'm able to stretch my index finger up onto the shutter release button. For longer lenses, my biggest lens is this humongous Fuji 200 millimeter f2. It's got like a 104 millimeter objective lens. It's massive. Oh yeah, very heavy. But for those, I kind of reached back to my Marine Corps days on the rifle range about using phone support, not relying on muscles to hold things because you start shaking and your camera feel it. Get your elbows in tight, or get them out wide. I rest I rest the end of the lens on the top of my elbow, and then I hold the camera up here to my face like this. Creates a really pretty damn stable position without needing any kind of monopod or whatever. But I do have some of those. Video monopods are great for anybody with disabilities who wants to get into shooting, because they're not as bulky as a tripod, but it's not like if you let go of it for a second, your camera's not immediately topping over. They're just really great equipment. And then just practice like anything. Practice. I found a couple good mentors in photography, and just shooting regularly with movie night has really built my skills up. So hand cycling was my original sport. I don't do that as much in Houston now, but I do still ride indoors as cross training for rugby. When I moved back to Maryland, a big reason for me doing that is to get back in touch with cycling, road and mountain. My mechanic lives up there. There's a great adaptive cycling group up there out of Bethesda. I got all kinds of adaptions. So I ride a kneeler. Since I'm an amputee without an arm, riding laid back like in a Force RX would be stupid for me, because I'd lose all of this muscle just for an arm. Yeah, so my crank is essentially in my lap. And I kind of lean forward a little bit, and allows me to use all of these muscles in my trunk and even in my leg.
So on your right arm, do you have a longer crank and a shorter crank?
No, the cranks are both the same. They're different widths, but they're the same diameter, because if they're different, you're going to be like this. It's going to be really weird. But I have a special arm I use just for cycling. It uses a different suspension system. I put a liner on, silicone liner, then I strap it into my arm. I found that liner helps as you sweat and move throughout the day, because you sweat a lot on a bike. That liner stays with you and holds suction better. If I was to use a skin fit like my daily arm, as soon as I try and pull back on that crank to get any power, I'm gonna pop right out.
Right.
And that just locks into. I have a turn device called a hammerhead. It's a little C shape with a rubber strap that comes over and locks onto a button, just a rubber button. I put that on there, lock it on, it's just on a straight pedal, and I crank with that. I've tried some different solutions, but your hand does this a bit when you crank a hand bike.
Right.
And if I tried some more solid solutions on that pedal, they were terrible, because then my shoulder had to make up that motion. So I was cranking like this and it hurt. On the left side, I took a thing called the C5 quad grip that Bicon makes. It's literally a rollerblade wrist guard, a little pylon that sticks out of the palm, and you can stick in the receiver. The wrist guard is trash. It lasted 8 miles on me and fell apart. But I was like, I really like the pylon that sticks out of the palm, so I took it to my prosthetist and said, let's make me a partial hand prosthetic with this pylon at the center. So they molded it to my hand so I can have, I can't go all the way down, but I can get this grip. So they molded it to give me that grip so I can actually pull back with my fingers, push forward with my whole hand. I can strap it on so my hand's not, I'm not pulling out of it or anything, it stays tight. And then I can also just slide it out as needed to grab a water bottle or eat, whatever I'm gonna do. And then shifting, I moved pretty early on, back in 2013. Yeah, I went to DI2. Back when they didn't have Mountain DI2 yet, it was all, road Ultegra system. Didn't last very long. Springs aren't good with our gear sets on hand bikes. They're usually mountain bike gear sets. But the buttons allowed me to shift with what I have. So I have a little knob that comes out of my bucket here, and there's 2 buttons on there, 2 button housings. So that's my cassette shifting. So, if I want to go easier, I hit it with my elbow toward me. If I want to go harder or faster, I hit outwards.
And you got 3 chain rings up front?
2. So I run a dual chain ring. It's in the rear for us. Those I shift with my nub, and I also brake with my nub. So the brake is a vertical lever. Sits down here when I want to brake, I just push down on it. And then there's a button on either side for me to shift my chain rings. And I put over 10,000 miles through that system, probably closer to 15,000 over the last decade or what it was. So like I said, don't ride as much as I like to anymore, but I'm working on changing that. I miss cycling a lot. As fun as rugby is, as fun as hitting people is, it doesn't have the freedom that hand cycling has. There's not like, just being out in the sunshine and the fresh air, grinding and suffering for hours on end, And then you get to the top of the hill, you get a great view, and then you get to go down the hill 50, 60 miles an hour. So, rugby's great. It doesn't have that.